as we're going deeper into the subject of what the future holds for all of us, I am thrilled to have with us Asad Lalji, who's joining us here from Mumbai. Asad is the SVP of the SR Group, CEO of Avid Learning, an arts and culture public programming platform, and the curator of the Royal Opera House in Mumbai. Asad brings several years of advertising, publishing, marketing, and business development experience, spanning both India and the international markets. And before he relocated to India, he worked for 14 years as one of the Mad Men advertising executives in New York. So he brings with him a rich cultural heritage, a cultural experiences, and his beautiful experiences in New York, and now merges his India and American and global outlook, curating amazing experiences for all of us at the Royal Opera House. More than his professional accolades, Asad Lalji is a very dear friend and has always been helpful. At the click of one message or one phone call to him, Asad is ready to help. So thank you, Asad, for always being my one
Pleasure.
phone call away friend. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, terrific. All right. So, Asad, we're going to talk from your vantage point, from someone who understands the art, someone who curates regularly, artists and different people from the cultural space. So, from your vantage point, why keep an eye on the future of work? Why have this conversation even to start with?
I think, traditional roles, the traditional way we work has been changing not just now, but for a few decades. In fact, we joked about me sitting with a tree behind my head. I mean, I don't work in an office all the time. I think the place you work is changing. 10, 15 years ago, they thought you were smoking something if you had to be sitting on a club and actually working. So, but the way we work and traditional roles have been changing over the last few decades. Technology has been an enabler and disruptor of the way we work within the arts. But with creativity still being the driving force and the skill set that we need, I think it's important to look at what is happening. And what I think is interesting is to see how education systems have to preempt this trend or keep up with what the trends are going to be. Like, for example, I just read last week in the news that Penn has announced its first Ivy League undergraduate degree in AI. And so, traditionally, as jobs which people are doing right now, like who thought they could make a living being a YouTube creator or being an influencer? 10 years ago, these were alien topics. So I think the future of work is interesting. It's evolving. And I think the fun part is you evolve with it because being static is boring.
In your role as curator of one of Mumbai's iconic venues, from your perspective, why is it important to keep an eye on this? Is it because the art forms will change in the future and you need to keep pace? Is it the consumer preferences that will change? Is it the art venue itself might become redundant? Like, from why in your space are you thinking about the future?
See, I obviously wear many more hats than just the opera house, but see, the opera house I don't think will ever become redundant. It's thinking of a museum will become redundant. You will still go to a museum to see a beautiful painting. You will still go to a performance venue to consume a performance or an act. And I just feel that the way you're going to be hiring the people, your team members, your artists, the way they consume, the way they produce, and the way they create is going to be changing. I mean, in lockdown, if you remember, all of us were on Zoom, and everyone thought Zoom was the best thing since sliced bread at that point in time. But Zoom wasn't created for the lockdown; it existed before. We just started using it; became a way of life, and now we are on a Zoom call doing an interview. Did we think this would happen before? We did a VC, which was very laborious, such as, oh, I've got to be on a VC and we have to sit in a nice connection. Now you can do these anywhere, including from, my lovely palm tree background. But I just feel that, Opera House, for what I do, it's interesting to see where things are going. Obviously, consumer preferences will also change as time goes by. People are going to want different things. And you have to find a way to preempt that in a way. So,
Okay, so we're talking about consumer preferences changing, and you seem to hold the opinion that museum spaces or physical spaces are going to exist going forward, even though there is
they're
a
going
whole.
to evolve. They're going to evolve. Yeah.
Okay, do you see any trends in terms of the evolution? Are you seeing more digitization come into these? I mean, these Van Gogh exhibits and all these art exhibits that are happening all around the world. And you walk into them and you come out, you're like, hey, in some sense, you didn't actually even see any art, so to speak, right? But you did have an immersive experience.
Yeah.
So you see coming through, like what's going to happen?
So, I mean, I wish I knew all the answers. I'd be a very rich man by 2040. But honestly, the truth is that uh, you know, technology is not new. It's been there. Whatever we are seeing in bits and drabs has happened somewhere in the world in the last 5 years at least. People are wanting more experiences, which is true, and especially the young. I think the fundamental thing is the younger generation have been born with technology in their hands. They learn to swipe before they learn to turn a page. That's very different from the older generation. So the way they consume and they want information, though they want to be entertained, is going to be different. Yes, you're going to be in a museum or the opera house, and there's going to be something immersive as far as tech goes. Whether you put on 3D goggles, which is also so passe now, that's also been happening for a while, or whether your talent is beamed in from outer space. I don't know. I mean, but the technology is the possibilities are infinite at the moment, and it depends on how people react to it, and what people are looking for. So maybe, who knows, in that point of time people may have all the technology and all the gizmos and all the AI and VR and all elsewhere, but they want to come and just use their eyes and ears like in a plain, simple form to experience something, which is also beautiful. I mean, I once had to go for an event, a very fancy one, and I wasn't allowed to take my phone in, and I actually had to, and this is as simple as your phone. So, and where you basically take pictures of everything before you actually see it in this day and age, right? But I actually had to use my eyes to memorize what I am seeing. And that was such a stretch, but it was such a beautiful experience because I remember not everything, but I remember the fact that I was trying to actually see without a phone in my hand, which is actually quite priceless in a way.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if
So
that makes any sense.
okay, yeah, sure, sure. Of course, it's a perspective, and all perspectives make sense. Uh, as you know, as you've been curating different sort of events, have you seen any changes in terms of consumer preferences so far, where you say, hey, like 15 years ago, like people would want to see this, but right now we're seeing this sort of performance getting redundant, and here's where the current interest lies in terms of just even it's not just the opera house, just overall in the art and cultural programming space.
I think cultural consumption has increased astronomically. There are more people interested in the arts and culture who are going to events, who are going to concerts, who are going to dance performances. Um, Obviously, as time changes, some of the styles change, the way people approach curation, it becomes more, from being linear, it becomes more holistic, it becomes more fusion. These are trends that happen, and it keeps, a lot of Western influence, a lot of globalization has given access to everything from all over the world. I mean, I remember growing up, you're much younger, but growing up, I mean, I used to watch the Grammy Awards 6 months later because it never used to come. It ran on Doordarshan 6 months later.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's what we did. And I joke, I did a TEDx video, talk, and I talked about how you actually had to go to a library to buy books, to get books. Your music came on cassettes. I mean, just the way we even consume media of every form has also changed. Now, all you need is your phone, which also may be now built into your glasses by next year. Who knows? It's already there, I'm sure. So the way people are consuming has changed. What they're consuming changes. There will be a few of the purists, but you have to keep up with times, right? I mean, even movies, the way it was shot in the 1950s, the way it's shot now, the themes, they change. And with that, people's preferences change.
Okay.
It's like a chicken and the egg, like which came first. We don't know that, but yeah, change
Okay.
is inevitable.
So you're saying diversity in terms of global programming, with more sort of influences, international influences coming into India, and
Right.
and fusion. You mentioned fusion and this sort of
Yeah.
influence coming through as well. Okay, so we talked a little bit about fusion performances. internationalization as a trend, with more global artists being more and more welcome into India. Like a lot of the
Sure.
performances we see now, 10 years ago, like these guys didn't come through India as much. So
Yeah.
there is some sort of flattening.
Or or Indians didn't go out that much. I mean, through ICCR or through various collaborations, there's so many Indian productions that are going out, grants,
Hmm.
international cultural organizations.
Okay. So there is this cross-border
Sure.
influx coming,
Pollination, yeah.
pollination happening. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about technology, right? Because this whole AI conversation, especially when it comes to the arts, it's a very bipolar sort of, there are people who love it and say this is a great aid and it can help me write my social media. I can write a screenplay, a story, whatever, a joke even. And then there are the naysayers who are like, well, this stuff is synthetic. You can tell when it's AI written. It's not really going to take over in any capacity. So where do you stand on this debate from a creative person's lens?
See, if you look at historically, okay, when photography came out, the purists said, oh, that's awful, right? When computers, then after that, when everybody started doing photography and it became a very tried and tested, beautiful art form that everybody embraced. When computers came out, people said, oh, now this is not correct. So the basic computer skills we used to create, and people said digital art. That was also said, no, no, that's not art. But then it became a normal. It became the norm in a way, right? Digital art is not something that is unusual. So AI is here to stay, whether we like it or not, right? I think the idea is how do you use it best to unleash your creativity. See, nothing can substitute human intelligence and human creativity and talent. Even if there's AI, your prompts have to be correct, the commands have to be correct, the language has to be correct to get the right feedback or get whatever back. So I just feel that it is here to stay, it is going to evolve, and how it evolves and how responsibly it is used is the question. Because I don't think people are so annoyed about the fact that it's AI. There's the fact that people are annoyed because there's no sense of accountability, ownership, leadership. No one's taking the charge. And now obviously there has been waits. And so, for example, like 3 years ago, I was obsessed by NFTs. So I did lots of talks on NFTs, and I went through NFT workshops and looked at techie disruptors and all that fun stuff within the arts. Now, obviously, that ship with the crypto winter dwindled a little. So then I've shifted my attention to AI. And what we've started doing is programming on AI. And our first program was AI, the latest disruptor in the arts.
Hmm.
And so we did that. And now then we started looking at each vertical. We did a program called Literary Algorithms, which looked at AI and literature. I mean, books are written by AI. People are using it as a resource. People are writing full books on AI.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. People in the visual arts world are using AI as docents, as research assistants. Next month we're doing a talk on AI and film. I mean, these are here to stay. It's not going. I mean, the idea is how do you use it
Hmm.
to amp your creativity and create a product that's different and it has your unique flavor. It shouldn't be like a chat GPT answer. And I feel lots of people as they start learning, and obviously softwares are becoming more and more easy to use and get and free and all that fun stuff. I mean, every day you read about how it's becoming omnipresent in everything you do. So,
And as you're
um,
doing these conversations and talks and hosting these, artists, what is the conversation around? Other artists also as pragmatic as someone like you saying, well, it's here to stay, and now it just depends on how well you use it, or are you seeing some backlash, especially from
I mean, change is always hard, right? For everybody, and especially the more senior artists and creative practitioners obviously are a bit of the naysayers, right? They're like hedging their bets. Okay, let me learn about it, maybe I'll use it. But some of the early adopters or the natives, digital natives, are all adopting it. They're using it in their work. I mean, some of the most wonderful work I have seen that has been created. See, nothing is going to take away the human creativity or the human mind, right? This is just amplifying it or helping it go in another direction. But the person who's leading it is the person, right? it's the prompts you put in, it's what you are feeding in, it's what you're getting out. So it's just another tool, I feel, as far as creation goes. But it's omnipresent in your life. I mean, you feel you've just said something and your phone sends you something back. What is that? I mean, the way you watch your movies,
Well, what
the
happens?
way you're,
What happens to the role of the
yeah.
artist,
So,
right? Like the artist shifting from creator to now prompt writer. Because, now, as you rightly said, it depends on how an intelligent prompt you can put in.
right.
Where do you see the
No,
role
but
of
I
the
mean,
artist?
I think the role of the artist is still, he or she is the artist. They're the creators. It's their mind. I mean, what they put as a prompt is in their mind. How they use it. Now, artists are not just putting prompts and creating, right? That's one way of doing it. But that's not. But people are using their art and creating and merging and fusing and blending and creating something that's totally unique and different. I mean, there's also a lot of thinking that can go on between it. You can put prompts to get a lot of data and using that data to create through numbers or through stats or through research. I mean, there are various ways people have done, like taken a research study, and the findings have been extrapolated and created into a piece of artwork, which I think is pretty cool. That's still creation, right? To think how you could do something like that. So
Okay, okay. So you're saying it's here to stay. It's an aid that people must use, and you don't see the role of the artist diminishing because it's still going to
nope.
be creative in terms of how you're able to use what's already out there, and that will
So,
become the differentiating factor.
and if an artist decides not to use AI and continues with their practice as is, it's great. There will be some takers for their practice. There are the emerging artists, the younger artists. There are some people's practices are not going to change, and that's what they're known for.
Okay,
But every
great,
artist has evolved through different stages of their career, right? They didn't
sure.
start painting landscapes and continue that. They moved. So,
So now, since you touched upon NFTs, let's stay a little bit on digital art, and where do you see the evolution of digital art? Do you really see people buying digital art in the future, it overtaking typical conventional art in due time, or do you think people are still going to like their oil on canvas, and that trend is not going to really shift?
I mean, I wish I could answer that emphatically, but I think there's a market for everyone. I mean, traditional art is going to have a market. Digital art will have a market. The way young people consume today, they don't want to have things. They want less is more. They believe in experiences versus collecting things. Like a lot of art, like people who have big art collections, I look at them and say, "So, do you think your kids are going to be interested in this?" So, it's a personal preference. I may like to project my art on a large screen and enjoy it as part of my artwork. I
Mhm.
may like to have a nice canvas above my head and look at it when I wake up in the morning. Um, so it just depends on people's preferences. I think there is room for both. Um, how much of each? I really don't know. I'm sure there are some statistics, but obviously the market is growing to a degree.
Okay. Um, let's shift a little bit to workspaces, right? Since you had started out the
Hmm.
conversation in terms of workspaces and talked about how you're sitting outside and you're still working. Where do you see workspaces move to going forward? Do you think it's going to be a hybrid space? Do you think the offices are going to get completely obsolete? Like, where do you see this trend moving to?
See, um, I think offices are not going to be obsolete, but they're going to be less paramount to what you do. I think, it's not COVID, it's not lockdown. When I was in New York, I used to run the B2B business of Verizon Wireless, which is the Voda of the US. And I used to market, one of my projects was this thing called a broadband access, use of a person's time to sit and um, uh, you know, you need offices because face-to-face interactions are important. Um, Certain times you need to be in meetings. I think it'll be a combination of all. I think we're all becoming so much more global in our approaches. You could be sitting in London and doing this interview with me right now. It wouldn't make a jot of a difference. Um, So I think the construct of an office is definitely evolved already. I think once accountability gets into it, because it's the only reason why people are forced to go to work is, oh, they're just fooling around at home. But if you call the shots, if you're leading your own, especially for creative entrepreneurs and stuff, they love a WeWorks. I mean, bad word, but they love a coffee shop. They love, a Soho House, a Quorum. Those sort of places are going to become more and more omnipresent. Also because of overheads and, it's also expensive, especially when you're looking at entrepreneurs and young startups. To maintain these offices is not exactly easy.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a
Okay.
combination of.
Combination of, okay, cool. All right, let's move to the last section of the conversation, which is around skilling.
uh,
As you think about the future, what would you advise? Let's talk about curriculum, right? So if you were to help design an arts curriculum in college, what would you suggest that they now add to their curriculum, and what are some of the things you feel are pretty redundant and they might want to get rid of?
I mean, I have never studied arts in India, so I don't really know their curriculum very well. But I think if you talk about, say, visual arts, right? I think one thing which I think is imperative is the people should still learn to use their hands, because the hand-eye coordination builds a new way of thinking, builds a certain way of thinking. And I think you can't get away with theory and because that's what builds your critical way of thinking. You have to learn somewhere. Like right now, all these young kids, they work so seamlessly between being a photographer one day, a filmmaker the next day, and a visual artist, and an installation artist. And previously, these were genres that artists would have crossover on a
Hmm.
regular basis. Today, they are multimedia artists. I mean, it's a common thing. It's because of technology. That's what they do. But I think if you look at skill sets, and the number one thing employers are looking for across is creativity. It's how you think and how you approach creativity in finance, creativity in law, creativity as in general. So I think the idea of applied learning versus rote, which is what we were used to in our younger days. I mean, at least in India, is application and giving people the experience to experience work versus be taught. I think that's a combination of it. See, the problem with the arts is there aren't too many degrees, especially in arts management. There are even fewer. So if you have, you know, and no one is the way they are out of school or the way they were born. You work, you learn from someone, you learn watching someone, not being taught, but watching. You learn from your bosses, you have mentors, you have tormentors, like sometimes they're both in one. And that's what shapes you. I mean, I've learned things from different people in my life. And I've hopefully taught people, and they joke that they've spoiled me for life because of the rigor I've made them go
The
through.
question
Because,
is the question is around futuristic skills. So
right.
if you were to, think through the future, what's you said, you
Mm,
mentioned creativity as a skill for the future. Is
yeah.
anything else that comes to mind?
I think, I think it's also creative intelligence in a way, or cultural intelligence. See, the silos will soon go. We're still going to be a global kind of uh, environment, or flat or global or whatever you want to call it. I think what is going to be important is obviously resilience of because change is going to happen so fast, and also being respectful to other cultures, learning from other cultures, being adaptable because things are going to be very different. It's going to be very fluid in a way. So those are also skill sets you need to learn. It's not a 1 plus 2 is equal to 3.
Sure.
Uh, um, it's going to be an ecosystem that you have to kind of fit in and make it work for the best of what you're trying to do for your needs.
Okay.
So that's what I think.
You're not saying this engineering skill set or whatever. That
each skill set, it's a way of thinking, according to me, right? Some people are good in numbers, some people are good with the words, some people are good with everything, some people are just good with people skills. Everyone has certain intrinsic skill sets that everybody can't be good at everything. You can't be, and you can't, so using what you have as your innate skills and interests, which is passion, which is another very important part for being in the next skill that you need for your career, is be passionate about something, and everything falls into place. It's not we're not and obviously you have to do the time. I mean,
Okay, cool. All right. So what I like from a futurist perspective is just because we're going to be living in an even more flatter world, just
hmm
being respectful of other people, their thought processes, uh, cultural sensitivity is a very nice point you touched upon. I think that's a really important skill for the future, because you don't know who you're going to be working with or working for, and just being able to be sensitive to that
or
difference.
you'll be working for a bot also, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Although I think we're already working for the bots in many ways.
Yeah,
But this was great. Thank you, Asalaji, for sparing your time and sparing a little piece of your brain today. Great conversation
pleasure.
and lots of great tidbits to help us weave the narrative. So thank you once again for helping out. Thank you.